Perfect would be definitely to hit them on the top part here, which is the hardest part.
Also, personally, it looks nicer in the photo.
Then we take out, you see the fish got one orky here. But it's not light until you cannot bring the fish back.
Okay, so I'm gonna start. Okay, so as you guys know, right, today on my post, I've invited two of the best in the business. Don't say lah, don't be shy lah. Two of the best in the business in Ajing game. More than Ajing, I mean they do a lot of all the like saltwater fishing. You do egging also, right?
Yes,
they're superb at it. Ajing, they are damn. Everybody try lah. Huh? But they are really one of the few that is superb in whatever you are doing, especially when it comes to Ajing. We invited them to come on the show, right, to share with us their techniques, their tips, their secret in catching Ajing. So if you ask me, I'm a stupid. I'll be very honest. I'm not good at it. I'm not saying like I'm good at it. I'm not even good at it. Okay, I'm way compared to all these guys, right? Really, I cannot compare to that. I really has got very minimal knowledge about Ajing fishing. So this is the time where you guys can pick their brains, ask them questions. Anyway, this program is a two-way traffic, right? Ask them questions, then you learn easier and learn faster. So this is the time where you can get them, two of them together, sit down, and then ask them questions. Okay, you want to introduce?
Okay, hi, my name is Dixon. So this is Ismail with me.
Hey.
So thanks for the opportunity from Dave to invite.
No problem. I also invite
to share all these tips and tricks, a bit of small little things that we learn along the way of Ajing. So basically, what is Ajing? A lot of people will ask. So basically, the word Ajing came from aji. Aji is a Japanese horse mackerel. So the form of catching aji is called Ajing. So this trend has been building up for the past few years. So when they reach our shore over here, and of course our shore and even in Malaysia, we don't have horse mackerel, but we do have their cousins like the yellowtail scat, the ox ice scat, big ice scats, and some if you go the wider on the umbrella, torpedo scats and herring scats, this and that. So in our
for all those names, right? Do we have like? Can you explain like the local name? Like this yellowtail is Selah. Because I think some of the viewers are more used to the local name.
No problem.
So dishes like this one, we call them the Selah. Then Selah, of course, there's Selah Papan. The small mouse scat, the slightly wider,
flatter.
Then Selah Papan, even the herring scat is called Selah Papan also. Anything that's white in our local term is Papan.
White. Messy.
Messy. It's a bit messy, but this is how it is. So even for big ice scat and ox ice scat, right, they are categorized under Tuabak or Lolong Mata Besar.
Oh, so Lolong is Tuabak.
Lolong is Tuabak.
Okay.
So local name is a bit different.
A bit messy, So basically there are a lot more species. I mean, the scientific name, I think they are more accurate compared to the local terms that we use.
Scientific name is even worse.
Scientific is worse.
I'm sure there's a local term for every single one. Like it's been lost in the ages.
Just like your barramundi, there's siakap, there's kimalong, there's barramundi, sea bass. So, wow, that's a unique thing about our local. Our culture has got all the different races.
And one fish has three, four
names.
Like this one, the actual name is called Atule Mate.
That's scientific name.
Scientific name. And then we got about Selah boobs.
Selah boobs and Selah.
Don't know what name. Some that we don't even.
But what are the more common ones that we can find locally?
Throughout the year, definitely, right, the ones that you come across first, right, is the Selah Papa, the smallmouth scats and the shrimp scats. Because they are generally hanging around jetties and structures. They are the ones you encounter the most in terms of scats. Then Selah, yes, our favorite, what we call tiger lah. Our
nasi lemak fish, right?
think traditionally it's
not
still
really also. Nasi lemak they also use kambong.
Kuning.
Yes, selah kuning.
Oh, kuning.
The smaller one, kuning, right? The normal one.
Yeah. Okay.
That also fall under the scat family.
smallest one, one of the smallest one. But like yeah, so and Salah will come across throughout the year, but definitely more in December when the monsoon is in.
That is for what fish?
Salah.
For Salah.
Yes.
Hey, write down there, please.
The boiling one is definitely around December. That's the fun one.
Please
They
take
are
notes.
around. They are around, but normally even at this time of the year or even later in June, July, but normally they'll be out more offshore. It's near to the end of the year is
Then they
where
come
they
in
really
closer.
come in and then they will breed and this and that. Then we start seeing the small one first. Then as they grow bigger and bigger, and when there's not enough to feed them around, then probably they'll go out to the.
So usually, how long does the season last for Sikla? 2 months, 3 months?
I mean,
More
for
than that,
us, it's
more
like
than
pretty much if you work hard enough, you're gonna get pelagics, mini pelagics throughout the year. But definitely,
If you're, let's say, you're more target orientated, like a species orientated,
for Salah,
yeah, for Salah.
you definitely
They hang around maybe like a good 4 to 5 months somewhere around October they start coming in. Then you hang out around until maybe about February or even March sometimes.
So from now to October, you got 6 months to prepare your gears, guys.
you know where to look for it.
you can buy here, can buy
here.
you can buy from Michael, no problem.
But yeah, definitely it's because our gear is so small, so fine. You will get a lot of fish. Action is usually non-stop. Not say non-stop, but you'll find something to bite your rod. But our why we target these species, right, is because scats are related to GTs. So it's basically scaled down version of fighting GTs. Very, very.
I heard the
small.
fight damn song, right?
So it's like electric field because the tail keeps hitting the line. So wow, Salah especially is different.
Okay, of all the species that you mentioned that we can catch locally, which one has got the best fight? I mean, pound for pound. I mean,
Salah.
you know, Salah.
To me, it's Salah.
Salah and the big eye scats for night.
Lorong. It's called Lorong.
Lorong. Big eye or ox eye.
Lorong, big eye scat, not your Geylang Lorong. That one I know sometimes fight very well also.
That also got fish.
That one, no fight. That one.
So, try to recap a little bit. Sikla will come in during October, and then you'll last till about February. So these are the time where you can really target them. And bye lads. And Sela is one of the better fighting ones compared to the rest, right?
Yes.
And then you have the speed demon, which is the torpedo scat. The Nyewei.
Hardtail.
Oh, you
Hardtail.
put shook, man.
Shook.
I like to eat. No. I don't eat fish, but I eat the bugger. I don't
You
know.
like Nyewei?
I
Yeah,
like it. I
Those
think
are
the
speed
meat are
demons,
firm, very firm.
like tuna.
Yeah.
And their body shape was also like a tuna,
Yeah,
but they are a
similar
scat.
to, but they are under the scat family. So
Yeah. So yes.
Sorry.
We target.
got distracted over there.
I thought who's that?
So yeah, we target them throughout the year, and then like I said, pelagics definitely fun. More fun to fight on Argentina. Even I mean you've caught big GTs and all this stuff. Definitely pelagics are up there with.
Yeah, in
with
terms
any
of
fish.
fight and stuff like that, of course, pelagic is still ranked as the number one fish to go for. I mean, every angler wants to catch
Sport,
a GT.
sports fishing,
Yeah.
sports fishing. I think most would like to go for pelagics.
Correct. Yeah, it's fun. It's really, it tests everything to the limit. Really, for pelagics.
So like if you were to go pop a GT from Maldives, right, you chuck. Maybe you land 3 one day or 4 one day, you're more or less like pangkang already. You know,
Good
you're
size
like,
one.
wow, you're
Good
back.
size enough already, go! Right.
But
Crack open a can, relax.
For this game, it's basically same as normal fishing. It's just that we scale everything down. Thinner rod, lighter and small rod, then smaller reel, thinner line, everything scaled down. So the fundamentals of fighting the fish is still the same. How you use the power of the rod, and how you address your drag and stuff. Everything is still the same. It's just that we use less muscle. So we can really go on and on the whole day, landing 30 or 40 fish one day, and you won't feel tired. I think this is one of the reasons that makes it why it's becoming more and more popular in our waters.
less effort,
Less-
but you shook 50 times.
And of course,
Yeah,
the things that
definitely.
when we go out is pretty easy. You know, you just take a bag.
And then yeah,
go
for
and
RG
walk.
gear, it's actually everything is very small. So you just pack a small bag. I think is more than enough. You can have a lot of different sizes of jig head, and then the different kind of packets of soft plastic. I think are ready to go.
In fact, if you know exactly what you're going for, and then you have your favorites, right? You can just stuff it in your pocket. You don't even need a bag.
That one is lazy, lah. That one is lazy.
But you end up leaving your stuff around. But for us, usually we'll have a bag. You know, we have our boxes with jig heads and everything. We prepared for everything. So sometimes you have wind, you have current, all these factors coming in.
Yeah, definitely.
So you
definitely.
prepare for that. Yeah.
So maybe you talk a bit more about the gears, lah. Why how we play this game?
Oh, I need to ask you all first because customers do come in, so they do ask us, do you guys prefer a shorter RG rod or a longer RG rod? So that's the questions I get very often at the shop.
Okay, that question, if I were to, based on our own experience and opinion, I think a long rod or a short rod, the more importantly is the action of the rod that's the most important. A lot of people have the wrong perception that as long as it's a light rod, that rate from 1 to 6 pounds is an Ajing rod. Sad to say that that's not the case, because we really need the action, especially something that we have ultra fast action. Because things that we use ranges from 0.6, 0.9 grams, all the way to 2.5 grams on shore. And if your rod is very soft and noodly, right, you can't feel your jig head at all. So we need something that is very sensitive so that we are able to feel the jig head in the water. So action wise, that's it. As for length, it all depends on where you're fishing from.
Boat or shore.
Boat or shore. So if you talk about
Shore is mostly jetty, wharves and stuff like that, right? Yeah.
If you are fishing from the jetty, of course a short rod can be good enough, but sometimes if you see a boiling out there too far, right, you might not be able to hit the distance.
Correct.
And if you're fishing from breakwaters, you want to achieve a certain distance, because if you cast too near, right, you will snag. So it's either you go into the water or you cast from the rocks. So longer rod will definitely give you a better distance.
And better leverage off the breaker.
Yeah, definitely. Leverage is very important, especially around jetties as well.
Yeah.
When you're fighting the fish. But of course, like on boat, you will go shorter.
Yeah, easy to
manage.
Easier
Because
to
if you
manage.
bring a 7 feet rod, you go on the boat, right,
I've seen an 8 foot Ajing rod on the boat.
I bring
then you turn here.
I bring
you
extra rod.
No, but you're going for casting bigger lures and stuff like that.
Oh no, I jig like 10-15 gram micro jig, but I use. I'm not going for Sela. I'm going for Saga and stuff like that. So I like to use. That's personal. I like to use long rod. I find that long rod, the fight is more fun. Everything amplifies, and then one thing I like about long rod on boat is because if the fish dives underneath the boat, right, it's easier for me to stick
Control
the
the fish.
Control the that's my personal thought. Yeah.
So we also we're not talking about like 4 foot something for boat. There are 4 foot, 410 rods.
Yeah,
and
yes,
stuff like
yes,
that.
yes.
But I think for myself personally, from personal experience, right, I would stick to that 5'11", 6'2", 6'5" kind of range. And then the other thing that's very important, like you say, right, when the fish dives down underneath the boat, right, you need to have that power, right? We think of these fish as small, yes, but they have a lot of go in them.
Yeah, the surge.
The surge is there.
Yes.
So when you are on a good size Sela or maybe even a Sagai sometimes, right, you need to be able to have leverage to get the guy in. So the power of the rod is also very important. And then adding on to, sorry to go back, but adding on to what Dixon said earlier, right? Another reason why we don't use the noodle rods, trap rods, is because you want to impart small action into the rubber,
Yeah, correct.
the jig head, right?
I would say a fairly fast action rod, it will impart the action better compared to a regular more parabolic rod. Fast action rod definitely with high carbon content and stuff like that gets the work done easier, I would say, because if you were to use a noodly rod, basically actually whatever you're doing, right, you're just moving the rod. The jig head is
The
not
jig
even
head is not
moving.
even moving.
Exactly.
The rod goes like that,
Yeah.
but the jig head is like that.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
So-
then you don't gonna catch fish.
You're not gonna, you think you are moving the jig head. You think that you are jiggling the jig head, but actually you are jiggling the whole rod. But the jig head is still like that.
Yeah.
But if you get that's why I would say that a pure RG rod, not trout rod, but a pure RG rod can be quite costly because of the material.
Yeah.
The way they built it, the material they use, and the action that is required, and the tapering, and it's a lot of R&D is being put into it. So RG rods, the better ones are quite costly, but they will make your life a lot easier.
You end up catching what you want. You see,
Yeah.
the reason why we go Ajing is to catch Ajing, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, of course, aramugam once in a while is okay, but when you are getting aramugams all the time and your friend is getting sala, then you know.
That means you're fishing at the wrong depth, really.
yeah, definitely.
So sensitivity, I think, is the key word here. So you'll be able to fish even the slightest stick if you use the right rod. So you know when to set the fish, or you know whether even to feel the jig head reaching the bottom of the seabed. So that is why we need a very sensitive rod.
And then, of course, you have the two schools of thought, which is tubular and
So, yeah. So yes, please cover that.
Solid
Yeah.
tip and tubular.
Please cover that, please. So I can use this video as my reference to my customer. Please
I
listen.
mean, okay, I can only speak from personal experience. I have used both tubular and solid tip. Solid tip, I would say, because it is a different bit of metal, different bit of material that's stuck on, glued, not
Yeah.
glued, but stuck onto the rod, you lose sensitivity there. But you will gain faster action. So when the fish hits, you get the reaction faster.
All right.
Whereas for tubular, it's one blank, you get more sensitivity, but I guess you lose a bit of that faster action.
The setting hook, because what I heard from my friends, Justin Low, he says when the sigler comes and take your jig head, it's so fast. They come in, they take, and then they speed out so fast that you need to be able to feel the take and set hook as fast as possible.
Actually, we have a timing for that. What's the timing?
0.026 seconds.
Yes.
They actually use a high-speed camera. RGs will suck in. Okay, the thing is, they are the inhalers, you know. So if you see that most RG hooks are designed to face upwards.
The point just doesn't come in, it goes out.
It face upwards. So like we human beings, if you see something, you know, you don't know whether can you eat this thing, and you take, you touch, you smell, and then you eat. You know, not nice, you spit it out. But RG, they got no hands, or you know, they cannot take. So what they can do is they will inhale in. If it's not food, they will spit it out. So the inhaling and spitting out is 0.026 seconds. And this is why
I think it's like you're blinking.
Yeah, blinking. That is why
Faster.
all the Ajing hooks are face outward to hit them on the top part of their mouth.
When they spit out.
Yeah, because this is the hardest part. If you sometimes you hit them at the side, you know, this and that, then
You're there.
you're there. That is another reason why sometimes when we are playing Ajing, our drag is set to the minimum, but not totally no drag, but depending on what poundage you're using. So that when you're fighting the fish, right, the mouth doesn't tear and you lose your catch. But perfect would be definitely to hit them on the top part here, which is the hardest part.
Also, personally, it looks nicer in a photo.
Then we take out, you see the fish come out oki here.
True.
Yeah, so that's some of the things that you know, we learn something new about this fish every day, because honestly we're obsessed with them, and then every year we learn something new about them, how they feed. Every year is slightly different. You know, I've been doing this not very long, not as long as Dick said, but I come across different feeding patterns, so you have to be prepared for it. And you have to help yourself by getting the faster action rod, right? And getting that length sometimes that is suitable for whatever you're doing. So most of us have multiple Ajing rods, specifically for Ajing, right? Because we know exactly what we're going to do that day, we take that rod.
For different applications, for boat, for shore, for jetty. So we all have our own different application of the rods.
But of course, if you don't want to spend that much, it's fine.
It's fine, it's fine.
You can get that one rod around the six.
I think
What would
10.
you think, like the length and then the rating? What thing? It's like one rod.
One rod Caucaso?
probably a 6'7" to
6'10".
6'10" thereabout.
6'10" is a little bit long.
It's a little long, but it gives you the advantage if you are fishing from the shore, because you'll be able to achieve a certain distance. If sometimes they might not always come near, you see. It all depends on where you are fishing. And when sometimes you see boiling somewhere, right, you bring a short rod. All your friends are able to cast there, you won't be able to cast there, you'll be cursing out, wow, why today I bring
Then
this
you break a
rod?
French rod, then no one only fish.
That's what, like the jig range, is it? Jig range wise, for sure I know that I'm not going to go beyond 3.5. 3.5 is the max, 3.54 is the max.
You all have from one of the viewer,
Yeah.
Fadil. How do you work very light jig head, like those 0.9 gram, I believe 0.9 gram.
0.9 gram. Okay. 0.9 gram, normally when you use jig head like this, right, 0.9 grams, right? Okay, maybe I just start with why we have different size of jig heads, different weights. First of all, current. Second of all, their feeding patterns. We use 0.9 grams or 0.6 is when they are feeding more on things like planktons that is floating in the water. So when they are feeding on planktons, right, we don't really work the jig head. We just let it go and let it float in the water to resemblance what is plankton. And then we will just tighten our slack as it goes, you know. You can do slight little twitch. But to use things like 0.9 is very tricky because your line has to be very, very light as well. So we will talk about line in a bit more first. But light jig head is only when we use it to mimic things like plankton.
And then, like, of course, we do go down quite a bit more as well. But for personal preference, I would start with like a 1.8 to 2. So that is usually my normal range. And then I'll go up or down depending on how they're feeding, what they're feeding on. That's very important. You need to know what they're feeding on.
You know, like what they say, the match the hatch. It's just like you can see that there is all the different types of worms in the market, different colors, you know, all these sort of things. So you can walk into a shop, you can see like, wow, this candy store, wow, 2,000 color, 2,000 shapes. Where do I start? So
buy all.
Buy all. You know? You come here, you can buy all. But of course, then you're gonna you buy all. You also must know which one to use.
It's try all.
Then you bring all.
You bring all.
Then you become like
Supermarket.
yeah, you bring the trolley bag. I go Ajing.
So like what Ismail said earlier that different year they come in, their feeding pattern is different. It's because they are feeding on different things. They might be feeding on anchovies here at Labrador one day, and you hit it with maybe something like this. I'm not sure if you all can see. It's
The fish arrow.
Okay, they might be eating anchovies at Labrador. So you hit this on a salar, but then another day you go to Bedok Jetty, you say, hey, I hit this on Labrador. You can try. If the salar in Bedok Jetty is fishing on anchovy, bingo, you hit it right. But if on that day they are fishing on certain things like krill or, you know, small little or planktons, you know, then we will choose differently. But again, all these are more like
based on experience also.
Water time, definitely.
Water time. Also, you go there. You know, sometimes you go there. You know, the fisherman thing. You walk past Longkao or what, you must, you know, take a look one. Even you go hospital, go one pond, you also must go and take a look. So all fishermen does that. So that's a good practice. You go there. Sometimes we look down. We see what are they feeding on. You know, or when somebody caught a fish, right? Sometimes you can see that small little krills or anchovies being spat out by the fish. Or even you go back when you are trying to cook them, you open up their stomach. You can roughly tell at what area you're fishing at, they're feeding on what things. So these are very good indicators that in future, the next few days we'll go back to the same place, right? Try to match your hatch. match or hatch is very important. Then also depending on the water condition, clear and very nice, then anything as natural in color is always very good. When it's murky, chalky, give some contrast. And when it's very sunny, this is my personal favorite, get something that is sparkle. So the sparkle from the sun, right, it attracts the fish to bite, it entices them to fight.
So something like this, right? Just to add on, right? Something like this kind of color, right, is very versatile, because it breaks the natural, it breaks the, how do I say, the profile of the lure, right? And you can mimic something like plankton with this. You can mimic a krill with this, and because it's got ribs and stuff like that, it will give a bit of vibrations in the water, right? If that's not working, then you might want to go for something that doesn't have too many ribs, maybe, and something more natural, right? Like this would be a good imitation of maybe like those baby fish, like
maybe beltfish.
Beltfish is something that they eat as well. Then if they, let's say on one particular day they're not taking, this is a small profile, right? But if they're not taking on this, then you might want to go for a straight tail, which is a slimmer profile, like this fish arrow flash J slim 1 inch. So you have to try different things, and the more time you spend at a location,
you gain more
easier.
experience. Yeah, definitely. The more time you are on the water, right? It's not only for RG, it's for all genres of fishing. The more time you spend whatever you are doing, or different kind of fishing, different genre, you popping, chasing sea bass, chasing RG, chasing squid, the more you do it, the better you become. That is very true. Very true. The more time you spend.
Yeah,
then there's Ryan Ng. When you play RG offshore,
how heavy
the jig
are the
heads?
jig heads you use, and how far do you let the jig head go down to? Okay, to answer you on that, it all depends on the area. If the area is very shallow, then we won't go too heavy because getting snagged. And if you're going to places that are very deep in water, places like MCC, MCE, right, certain part, right, the water can go up to 30 meters or even 40 meters. So places like this, we normally use heavier jig heads like 2.5 or 3 grams. So we'll let it sink. For myself, I let it sink all the way to the bottom, because you never know at that point of time RG are at which column of the water. Normally they are at the mid column. Normally they are at the mid column. So a good way for me is when I reach any place, when I already set it out, right, I will drop my jig head down to the water and I count mentally how many seconds my jig head touch the seabed. So if it takes me 30 seconds to touch the seabed, right, I know that the water depth here more or less is about 30 seconds to reach. But of course, certain places it goes gradually outwards. So by the 30 seconds, you can break your column into 5, 10, 15, 20, and so on and so forth. So I normally start from the bottom, and then I work my way up, doing some jigging action, and then letting it sink, and then jig up again and sink. So when you're searching them on different columns, once you hit them at a certain column, you will more or less know that, you hit them somewhere around mid-water, maybe about 15 seconds. You can do another cast and try at 15 seconds. And if you're still hitting them on 15 seconds, right, that means you hit the jackpot. You have to go slightly deeper, and doesn't mean that you hit them on top water when you're jigging up, they're on the top water, because sometimes they chase from the bottom upwards.
We've seen this many times.
We've seen this many times.
Coming up.
So sometimes they chase all the way. By the time they are able to hit your rig, they are close to the top. And you might have this idea that, I hit them on the top water. But you still have to try letting your jig head sink lower. So depending on where you're fishing, if you're fishing at places like Punggol Air, where it's very rocky, right, of course, we won't ask you to use a 3 gram or 2.5 gram, because you'll be snacking stones everywhere, you'll be losing rigs everywhere.
And that's the frustrating part. You keep getting snagged, fishing.
You tie the
tie. I want to do Ajing already. Ajing is rubbish. No, we don't want that. We want you to hit fish and hit pelagics. That's exactly what we want. I mean, of course, when you go to Punggol, you know that you're gonna hit certain species like Chermin, who
Song.
yeah, you're gonna hit bigger fish on Ajing tackle, fun, because everything will try and
Amplifying. The fight is amplifying.
Amplifying.
So a good
That's
place
crazy.
to always start with, I mean, I would say is 1.5, 1.8 to 2, that range, and then work your way up or down depending on
The
how fast
current,
is.
the current is, or sometimes if they're finicky, too big of a jig head they won't take. So you have to go for really, really small ones, like even sometimes we bring it down to 1 gram or 1.5 grams or even 1.2. It shows the profile of the jig head also. So things like the straight Rocket Plus, these are one of the very popular in our local scene, this Rocket Plus.
So it gives a very good profile to the worm lah. I mean, the whole overall presentation of the bait, right? But sorry, Ryan was asking on boat. So on boat,
Boat.
Ajing, right? So for boat, our main target is of course Selah if they're around, but we also like Sagai. Now we know that Sagai feed on the lower
column.
Of the near the bottom, right? So let's say we're fishing about 20 meters or something like that. We use something maybe 3.5 grams to 4 grams, because most of our rods go to a max of 5 grams. So especially the boat rods.
Okay, even though up to 5 grams,
8 grams,
you can put 8 grams, but if you are just dropping it, I think using bigger jig head will not be a problem. But I think end of the day is you must be able to sink your rig down to the strike zone
As soon as possible, right?
As soon as possible.
Before you
So
go.
even though if you are using a 3 gram or 5 gram, but if you are using certain PE lines, like PE 0.6, or so, it will hinder your sinking, or even might not be able to sink.
Yeah, because there's a lot of line resistance in the water. And then don't forget, when you're fishing for pelagics, the current are usually quite fast.
Yes.
So your
is
current
strong.
will pick up your line. Instead of you dropping at the spot where you want the jig head to be at, it probably might be like 10 meter, 15 meter away from your spot.
Worst is you go over the coral reef and you snag.
Oh, I can tell you a worse one. Yeah, go over the coral reef. Your line is going that way, right? Because you are not controlling your line.
Oh, then the jig head down here.
Jig head down here.
Yeah.
Then you say, sangkut.
But actually, when you thought I've seen this before. People think that, I'm letting my jig head flowing, but actually your jig head is right at the bottom. But it's because the water picked up the line, and then you're letting the line out, feeding. Then after that, why haven't reached? Then you crack. Then you see your line coming back. Then reach the rod tip, the line
Straight down below.
But actually your jig head already reached bottom, but already sunk already, too late.
So there are things that you pick up along the way, where you're releasing line at a certain speed, watching out for wind and all this kind of thing. It's a very technical game.
Yeah, it is.
But it can become like muscle memory, where you're just very used to it. Oh, okay, the current a bit strong, change jig down. And if you follow the steps, if you go with your experience, you will hit fish. But the main thing is, once you hit fish, right, you tell your friends exactly what you're doing, okay? Because
You gotta share, man.
What was the
Fish learn, share.
Yes.
Fish learn, share.
Always don't be that guy on the boat, right? I hit fish, I'm gonna let you know exactly.
So like for my case, right? Okay, let's say if I go, I mean, in fishing context, like what we do is like if I'm out on offshore, like jigging and stuff like that, some of us might be using 40 gram silver color, some of us might be using green color 30 gram, then I might be using a silver 15 gram. So usually what we do is like we are jigging using different jigs and then different weight, different color. So if I manage to hit fish like consistently, you get more hits on that particular weight and color. So you can tell our friends, hey guys, change your jig to 15 gram silver color. So everybody enjoy. Don't be the asshole that you're catching and then they are not catching, then they steady there. Everybody want to have fun. Since you're on board only 4 or 5 people, let's have fun together. Just share. Then if they don't have, right, you have the jig, right, Sell them, double the price.
Yeah.
No, for us it's 20 USD.
Yeah, a worm like this, one piece, when you go on offshore,
Those Jalan one,
$20 USD.
Yeah, that's our going rate.
What Thailand long hair?
No choice, you go and buy.
One plastic eh?
One
Yeah,
plastic.
one plastic.
One
20
G
US
head.
ah.
I tell you already,
$20
go and buy.
USD.
They'll buy.
My jig up price liao.
Hey, that potong jalan one is like spoil
Why my
market.
one only double the price for your tour?
So
Okay, I up price.
there is many ways, of course. Also, your line that you use for
Yeah, Timothy was asking the line. So what's the poundage of line do you match with different gram of jig head?
Uh,
Well, that would be
actually,
hard, you must
actually
bring a lot of
we
ribbon,
don't, we
right?
don't really match the jig heads with the line, but more like if I'm going out on a boat trip, right? I'll use something like
Slightly
between
heavier?
2 to 4 pound line.
Slightly heavier, right?
Because we'll be
You never
hitting
know if you
bigger
keep
sagas.
bigger
right?
size, yeah.
so
And-
like for boat myself as well, I will just have about 2 pound line. So if the fish is too big, then bo pian lah.
Just hang on, just hang on only.
Thank you.
So it makes you a better fisherman. I mean, 2.3 pound line or what, sometimes we land 1 kg to even 1.5 kg of fish. But it's just that you take a longer time to land the fish. Why are we using lighter lines also? Because the jig head we are using is normally about 3 to 5 grams. And if you use anything too heavy, you won't be able to sink your jig head down to the strike zone. Then it defeats the purpose of fishing with small little rigs like this. But of course, I believe there's people doing PE 0.6, but they're using metal jig.
No, jigs,
When they're using metal
that's
jigs,
me, I mean lah.
10 grams.
0.4, 0.6.
So-
We're using 10 to 15 gram jig.
So it's a bit scaled down. If you're using 0.6, 10 gram, we scale down. So we are using 3 to 5 gram, we scale down again. So another trick that we use, if the current is too fast, you drop your line straight. Per se, you're at the side of the boat, you drop it down, you go, but the current is too strong that you are unable to hit the strike zone, right? The other thing you can do is cast up current. Where the current is coming from, we cast up current and let the jig head sink down, let the jig head have time to sink to the strike zone. But on the way back down, of course, we tighten our slack. Tighten your slack, try to feel. Then after it comes to you, right, and when you're releasing, right, release your rig the same speed as the current. Let it go, control. Don't let your line fly over a place. Because you are fishing with, your kaki, then your line go over his line.
Yeah lah, that time my friend lah. Wow, I big chicks, yeah.
Mention names ah.
Feeding time. I was feeding line at a constant rate. This cuckoo bird came next to me because I was hitting fish. He cast over my line. And then he started feeding also. You know what happened? His hook went in between
Your
my
PE line.
in the middle. Imagine I let my line out, like for example 30 meter. His hook went in between 15 meter of line in the middle.
Right.
Hallelujah, cut away.
Wow, lan eh.
So in terms of
Blood boil that one.
well, you're still out fishing better than working, right? But you
True
won't
lah.
get a tackle shop. So, but for me, I have a preference for ester lines.
Oh yeah, let's talk about PE and ester because I think the viewers also want to know the difference between PE line and ester line.
Okay.
Why do you use PE line and why some people use ester line?
PE line, ester line. Ester line is preferred at our game because certain brands of ester line, they have this specific gravity of 1.38 or even 1.4. And this really helps you to sink your light rigs into the water. As for PE line, right, of course they're sinking PE.
But it's not that one is not specific. The rate is sometimes can be
Still
quite
can
low.
lose to ester.
Lose to ester.
So because
correct.
PE line, there's another disadvantage is when the PE line is soaked with seawater, it's the same density as seawater. So of course it will not help you in sinking your rig down to the strike zone.
Correct. Then what's going to happen is you're going to have to upsize your jig head, which will destroy not destroy, but upsize your profile. Then that fish won't take.
Then the presentation is not natural and not small.
Yeah. So that's why we like using the ester line. Also, it's very fun when you hit a decent sized fish.
But using ester line, you also have to take in it's different. Ester line behaves slightly different from PE line.
PE line, yes.
If you are used to PE line, ester tends to have a bit more memory. So by using it, you have to learn how to use it. That's one of the important things that you have to understand. Right. It's not like PE line. It's not like your nylon or things like that. They behave a bit differently. Yeah, so you have to understand the line.
So yeah, exactly what David was saying. Ester comes in like this, the very vast Ajing Master, right? It comes in this roll, right? It's a plastic. It wants to stay in this shape. But when you roll it onto a reel, it becomes this small. It wants to explode up because it does have memory.
Yes, memory. So you squeeze everything in. It's waiting, something with time bomb waiting to explode.
If there's no tension on it, you'll just point.
So the thing that we normally tell new users, right? When you first load your line, don't go to a jetty. I know everybody's excited and do a full cast. That's where your bihun all come out.
You first cast something can go home already.
So, normally is tie a jig head, or you can even tie a split shot or something, right? Do light flicks. You flick out, collect back, flick out, collect back, and
stretch the line a little bit.
Let it go.
Season it a bit.
Season the line. Then you do a further cast and run in the line a bit, lah. Then from there you can really go full force and cast the line.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with Ester, because of its specific density compared to salt water, it doesn't absorb water.
Correct.
It will help you sink. But because it's so thin, it's you need a leader. And we tie a leader using, we use a fluorocarbon, right? Because we want to give the best chance for us to catch fish. Not easy to catch fish in Singapore sometimes. So we use something like a 4 or 5 pound, maybe 6 pound fluorocarbon.
Depending when you're using it, whether on boat or on shore.
Correct.
Also, another thing I want to add on is Ester line has what we call another defense mechanism, because Ester line is stretchable.
Yeah.
So it helps you fight the fish as well. And again, that's why some will prefer PE line, because PE line is very sensitive because it doesn't.
So
stretch.
you feel every tail beat, every beat of the tail. But Ester, because it stretches, you don't really feel it. It sort of like absorb the vibration and the shock. But for PE, it's
definitely
more intense.
So with the sagai fight, you will just feel like heavy head shakes. Then when it comes near to the boat, then you start to feel everything. Whereas with PE, it's like
you can really feel the head shaking.
And then one more thing, when it comes in regards to PE and Ester line, right? If you use PE line, also try not to set your hook your drag too high, because if you're targeting the fishes that has got very paper thin mouth, right, you tend to pull the hook. It tends to come out because there's no stretch. But if you use Ester, right, it gives you a bit of stretch, so the hook will stay better. But PE line, try not to set the drag too high. It tends to pull the hook out.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, of course, if you are fishing in places like Maldives, where he's from, catching small fish like this is fun. But it's not fun when other bigger fish come for this fish. So we want to land the fish fast. Bring out the fish fast. Or if you are fishing near shipwreck or unjam, right, and when you want to bring them up fast, of course the PE line will be better.
Correct. Definitely.
And it can withstand abrasion better than Ester line. Ester line, once you hit anything in the water,
I always thought that Ester can tahan a bit more.
A little bit, depending on the poundage. Because Ester is, sometimes some PE lines are actually, the diameter is thinner than Ester.
Yeah. Versus poundage.
But that's why I like to use like 2 pounds or so, because just in case
Who's it? Don't know. No, not
hantu. Sorry. No, sorry, I cursed. So I like to use 2 pounds because I'll be prepared for any situation. I can take it to shore, I can take it on boat. I just have to be a little bit more patient sinking the line as compared to, like, let's say if I'm using 1.2, 1.6 or something like that. But 2 pounds is a good place to start. 2 pounds or so.
So if there's 2 pound Ester, right?
Yeah.
But if let's say it's P line, what will be a good P.1, P.1, P.2?
So you have some PEs like
I think 0.1, 0.2, 0.2, 0.3 also okay. Even certain types of
there's actually 0.0 something.
Yeah.
0.0.
And
it's like 4 pounds.
It's called, I think
I hate loading that line.
That one is armor, right? Armor.
No. The you know which one I'm talking about? Orange one. But okay lah.
That one I think is 0.05 PE, if I'm not wrong. So of course, it depends on. You can go the best is the lighter you can go. It'll be the best lah. But of course, if you're fishing in certain area where there's a lot of structure, then of course you
Try not to.
try not to lah. You know,
You'll be tying a lot of lines and a lot of
losing
breakages.
all your
Yeah.
rigs, you know, losing all the jig head.
Try
But you
not
know,
to.
he'll be happy lah to see you guys come back lah.
Hey, burst off!
So if he asks you, hey, find the thinnest line, because he want you to lose your jig head.
Then you can have those big queenfish, one run. Ooh,
Wow,
change
shit.
the reel.
Oh, that's
Lucky
it.
best.
Oh, lucky best, come change line.
Well, kena street song definitely.
No, but like we do encounter situations that way. If we are lucky, we do land them. But at the end of the day, we were targeting small fish when you hit a big fish.
You cannot choose one. No. Fishing is you cannot choose
Cannot
one.
choose. That queenfish, or sea or worm, tiny worm, is a 2 kilo queenfish. I still feel like eating that. He'll go eat.
Yeah, you cannot choose one. There's no way you can choose when it comes to fishing.
Or you don't set yourself up for failure. It's like me, I took my Ajing gear, 2 point something pound line, and I went offshore 2,000 meters deep. Where everybody was going for a big yellowfin, I got a cast. I hit a yellowfin.
Huh?
Yeah, small one lah. But
Yeah.
I landed.
What song?
Landed. But we chase. Everybody lines up. I'm going to chase my small fish.
Oh.
My friends are very good friends. Okay, but we landed that fish, but my reel gone.
Three.
So don't you know if you happen to come across good, but don't go and be dumb.
No, it's always one thing to. For us, I think anglers we want to achieve something to up the ante. Yeah. You see, on the 2 pound line and to hit the yellowfin tuna, even if it's a 600 gram yellowfin tuna, guys,
81 kilo. I don't know.
it's different.
Yeah,
It's different.
different.
It's different.
40-minute fight.
Yeah.
Chased it a little bit. It was not easy lah, but it was worth it. I would say the memory lasts forever.
Correct. You got bragging rights, eh?
Yeah,
2 pound line, see my tuna.
Maguro, Ajing gear.
But only do once, right? You do a few more times, your friend will kick you off the boat. Confirm 100%.
So yeah, we definitely line is very important.
Okay, guys, any questions to ask our guests here? I mean, since they're here, you're watching, might as well ask them questions to help you with your RG game. Don't keep quiet, eh? Just ask them questions. Anyway, we're gonna end soon also.
There were some, right?
No, the last one was this the jig head one, no? The Timothy. Then there's no more already. They all listen out.
So I think we cover rod, we cover line, we
Reel.
cover the worms. We have yet to cover reel.
Okay, reels, right? What reel?
Give me
Jigger
the
4,000.
no
How about Arity?
the Stradic 8,000,
So you want 1,000 or 2,000? Same
1,000 and 2,000 lah.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
please
end
tell them
with
the difference.
Yeah.
Hey, where's Michael? Oh, he went out.
Okay. Oh, this one poison.
Yeah.
New Luvias Arity.
Smooth like butter.
This is what we
The
are
pocket
looking
also
for.
smooth.
Yeah, I heard.
So in Ajing, normally the size of reel we use is 1,000 and 2,000. Shallow spool. Please
Can you
remember this.
explain to them why don't use the normal deep spool for
Okay, basically the line that we use is very thin. If you were to use a deep spool, right, you have to do backing, and backing is always not recommended. If you can get something that is shallow spool, get something that's shallow spool without backing. And why are we going 1,000, 2,000? It's also because of the drag. If you can get things that's more for finesse fishing, right? Because the line that we are used is so fine, if your drag is not smooth, right, it will become jerky. And once it jerks, right, that's where you lose your fish.
Yeah.
So 1,000, 2,000, depending on line poundage that you're loading.
So the most reels will tell you what it is, what's the foundation of the drag and everything. So you're looking at about what 2.5, 3 kg drag, right? You're not gonna use the full 3 kilo drag.
Yeah.
It's fine tuned, right? We have how many percent would you say about?
You can load up to 60%. You know your drag. You know if you're using a 2.3 pound line, you can load maybe like 1 pound of drag. You know, but of course, not heavy until the mouth tail.
Yeah.
But it's not light until you cannot bring the fish back. And then the fish is still down there.
Then your line all twisted. Because you but like the line all twist.
So in our game, when we fight the fish, right, we tend to really only touch if it's going towards structure, or if you feel like going, if you feel like you are running out of line or something. So we do clicks. So you need a reel with fine gear, right? You can find smaller reels that doesn't have fine gear. What will happen is after a while, right, there's a point of no return. It's just loose only. There is no.
So it's either on or off. When you on, your line break. You off, you can't bring the fish back.
So it helps to get a decent reel with decent fine drag.
This one.
Right.
Arity.
And it's also very beautiful. Okay, the other thing we want to touch on is actually the type of spool. Yes, we covered shallow spool, very important. The other thing is you need to look at whether it's a power gear
or high gear
or normal gear.
Normal gear.
Yeah. So for me, personally, I would prefer always to have high gear because you want to have
Faster retrieval.
faster retrieval rate. Not that big of a fish, so if they are chasing very fast, if they're only eating the lures that are going very fast, then you don't have to crank so hard. Whereas if you're using a power gear, you're gonna be like.
So it's like easy to drive a fast car slow than to drive a slow car fast.
Exactly.
So if you have a fast gear, when you want to slow it down, right, it's just only your hand. But sometimes on high gear, right, we are taking around this speed when the fish is biting. So
fast,
sometimes you take this speed.
Oh.
Because Sela like to chase.
Sometimes
they
you
go
even
crazy
skimming
when you
across the
see
surface.
fast.
So
Imagine
they are
you're using a
basically
normal gear, you'll be doing
They are sort
very,
of
very
like a
fast.
reaction fish.
yes.
Oh.
Like we can cast into a boil and we get ignored. 10 people cast into a boil can happen until you give them the right thing. So you got to keep trying and trying until you hit the
Keep
right.
switching and switching.
Switching not only your worm presentation but also your retrieval speed, your depth and everything until you hit the correct way. Then you tell your friends what you're doing and then everybody will hit.
Just like the different type of action, we sometimes do straight retrieval, sometimes we do what we call the twitch and you fall, we twitch a bit and let it fall again, and then we twitch and let it fall, and sometimes you just like what the other one said that we use light one and just let it float in the water to mimic planktons. So there's different way of catching them. It's also like we say how we match the hatch and how the action, the worms will match into what they are actually feeding on.
Just sorry to touch back onto the reel. One more thing, right? The reason why we would use power gear is, let's say if you're going for something like a sagai, I would say, where speed is not retrieval speed to get the fish.
No need.
You need the top.
Correct.
So more top per crank, right? You need to bring the fish in fast. That's where you would use a power gear. But of course, you can use both lah.
You can use both lah.
But
There's
as long
no right and wrong as long as you land the fish.
shallow spool.
But shallow spool is a must.
Shallow spool.
Do not come and with a 3000 size and then want to load a 0.4, 0.3 line with so much backing. No, that is not built for it because your minimal drag to pull the line out is also quite high already. So it's better to get a shallow spool. The drags are probably max at 3 kilo. Whereas a 3000 size is max at 5 kilo.
Or you have some reels which are 1000 size maxed at 5 kilos.
Yeah.
So I would tend not to get something like that. Looks nice, looks small, cute and everything, but there's a point of no return where you're just struggling with the fish.
So you, like we spoke about, on or off only.
Yeah.
You can't fine tune your.
There's no modulation. Yes, don't have modulation. Okay, lah, bye lah.
Buy two.
1,000, 2,000.
1,000, 2,000.
They're really nice.
Okay
Oh, it's actually more beautiful than the pictures.
Yeah.
Darker color.
Nicer lah, don't want too bright. Like too silver a bit.
When the pictures first came out, it's very bright.
It looks very bright, but actually it's a very nice reel. And you can feel that the drag is very fine. You can feel that the drag is very fine, not the tuck. And in Ajing game, this is the type of reel we are looking
Yeah, if you have that drag that goes tuck, basically you are screwed because your line goes tuck. The hook in the mouth goes tuck. The hose get tuck, then they lose the fish. Simple as that.
try to keep that drag as smooth as possible.
Yes.
Try not to have the inertia of the jerking feeling. That's where you lose fish. Besides RG, even for my sea bass fishing, the drag has to. We use higher drag, but also the drag has to has modulation, and it's not jerky, because once you have jerky drag, right, when the lines don't come out smoothly, right, that's where the mouth will tear. Once the mouth tear, the hook drop, and then that's it. Bo liao, game over. For sea bass fishing, you can go 1,000 tree and catch one. Then you lose that one, you're gonna kick yourself in the butt. That's the thing.
Yeah, same thing like, you know, those ice cream days where you are chasing a sala, and suddenly you get one sala, and then you drop the fish. Like, oh,
Yeah, what picture
really,
Wow, shag
really, you know, it pays to, you know, get your drag grease on.
The proper setup is so important.
Exactly, you're gonna have more fun definitely.
Can untune
The drag clicker. Remove drag clicker lah. No sound lor.
Why? Why you want no drag clicker? That's one of the best parts of our.
Yeah, the sound is the most song thing.
Yeah,
So of
yeah.
course you need a bit of sound to heighten everything, the sensors.
Song.
But sometimes the sound also gives you a certain clue where the fish is slowing down or the fish is picking up. If it's like then it's pancing, it's time to slowly pump. Then if the fella going then you just spray the line of your
Just
street.
hold and pray, you know, hope for the best.
You can do something that we do like
Oh, the
Thumb
feathering.
the feathering,
sometimes
yeah.
you hold,
Feather,
and then
ah.
you just thumb a bit. You know, when it goes thumb.
Thumb and feather, not go in there, not jam and jam by
You jam, boom.
This one is pick up.
Okay, guys, is there any more questions you all need to ask? Even after the show, right, you can put in a comment box. They will reply.
Sorry, Timothy, because I still need to make it louder, but the
Oh.
is it carbon drag?
No, I think you're talking about the clicker
The
inside.
drag clicker
Oh.
to make it louder.
Actually, basically, if you get a good reel, I would say don't touch it.
Yeah.
Just leave it alone.
Leave it as it is the best, right?
You can get a spare spool.
Yeah.
It's
It's good to have a spare spool, right, because you have different line foundation and stuff, right?
Correct. Also, if you get stripped, you just throw it on.
Hello?
Or you just, if not, you
But
just
the
suck
way
thumb.
Thumb.
this session with them, I find that RG fishing very easy to kena strip, right?
No, actually.
But it's a good thing, why? It's
Good
the
thing,
soft
good
thing,
thing,
you know.
good thing.
How often you get stripped?
Maybe, okay, I've seen it maybe last year once. Yeah. But that one also, like, you can get stripped on a P line also. It's just, if the fish is too big,
Yeah.
if it's not your fish, it's not your fish.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about it?
Okay lah. Anything else to add?
Yeah, maybe one.
Okay, no problem. Go ahead.
These ones are very important. Okay.
Go ahead.
So, hook size is also important. Like, you have a 3 gram diver down here, right? Which is something that we use very often. Okay, but you can see that this version of the diver down has a very big hook, and it also comes with the hook keeper. I mean the bait keeper on the hook, which is something that we don't recommend at all. You would rather, because what happens is the rubber is so thin sometimes, right? It will actually destroy your rubber, and it will mess with the action
So you can
sometimes.
see it. You will destroy your rubber.
Warp your rubber sometimes.
Oh, that silver part, where the neck is, where the
so
neck
like
is.
Things
Yeah,
like
okay.
this will all destroy your rubber.
But these are both. I mean, they are designed, I think, for fatter soft plastic,
Yes,
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So maybe if let's say I put something like this onto something like that, then it's not a problem.
Try not to use this jig head on the slimmer profile soft plastic. Don't use things like this. Like you're not gonna match this kind of profile with this kind of hooks. Because this is too bulky already. You'll destroy the profile of the thing. So probably you can use something like this.
Size 8, size 6.
If you want to use this, right, it's okay to use something with a fatter profile. I think it's a lot better.
Yeah, I think it goes for fishing in general.
Yeah.
Soft plastics.
Soft plastics,
Right. You somebody asked, can you use lure? I think I saw it.
Yeah, can you use lure?
I'm sure you can.
You
but
can, but not too big, of course. You can find small little lures. They do respond to lure. They also respond to metal jig.
metal jig is
Yes.
very effective.
They also respond to metal jig as well. So of course you can use lure, you can use metal jig.
But for us, we are trying to mimic a certain type of movement or bait and everything, and we find that rubbers help a lot. And for rubber, for the time that we spend Ajing, right, I think we spend less on rubber, because if you lose a good jig, duo tetra works what, $7, $8?
$7-8. Yeah.
So rather than that, I will, you know,
buy a
one
packet
jig
of
head.
soft plastic, you can have like a
Correct.
few more go at it.
So like this wouldn't cost me more than $15, but this can last me a whole day if the fish are biting. So good, you know, it's these things that you consider. You use one lure, good one, you're probably gonna lose like $15-20. So
Imagine go on the reef again. Toing, toing, toing.
not even on a fish.
Yeah, I lose on the reef.
Oh, worse.
Check.
Cast.
No, the worst one I hate what is the worst. You go offshore, right, is you kena todak.
Wow, shit.
Another thing, if you crank too fast, if you don't sing your line enough, you're gonna kena todak. It's fun at first, but you will get bored very quickly by todaks.
You have your leader gets smashed, your jig head gets smashed, your soft plastic gets smashed. No, todak is
Line
not free.
twist.
Line twist. Oh, I hate it, man.
So then of course the other thing that will come along is a queenfish, still a pelagic, still.
But I rate that
rank it
better.
definitely
than
higher,
todak.
definitely higher. Especially a big queenfish will give you a good fight. I don't like them because they jump, because I use ester, right? It will stretch my line. But for fight quality,
Queenies.
Queen is good. Yeah. And they get big, and they are very willing to take, not so picky.
Correct. Not so picky.
Right.
Wait, 3 gram to how many gram of metal jig?
Even 3
Depending on
grams,
rock.
depending on where you're fishing, you know, if you can find 3 grams metal jig, up to your rod's casting specs. Of course, I will ask you to cast a 7-gram jig on your
3 gram rod.
4 gram or 5 gram rod. You know, you break your rod and then you come curse at me. So it all depends on your rod also, and also depend on what they are fishing on or what they are feeding on. But of course, generally 3 to 5 grams is good enough.
You must remember that sinking too fast is also a problem. Yes, you're covering the water column, but you are not giving a natural presentation of maybe a dying bait fish or something, right? Or maybe plankton, right? That's important. You need to try to slow it down a little bit, or if you want to do it the other way, where you want to go to the bottom as fast as possible, jig up all the way. There's another way it works as well. So different things, right? You can't have the one thing that conquers all. Really, I mean, any fishing, I think.
So it's good to bring along some jigs. Sometimes they don't react.
What is RLH RG line stripper? I don't understand.
RLH. What's that, bro? I mean, hi.
What is RLH?
RG line strippers.
Oh, no. How to keep and reuse rubber with hook for other day? Gilbert, just throw away, buy new one. That's the best advice. No point keeping.
Yeah. Actually, if you
Hang at your motor and let it dry.
Actually, what we do is, if you all don't want rubber, right, give to me, please. I'm working on a piece of, on an art piece. If you don't
Oh,
want,
Raffles Lighthouse. Of course, everybody know.
you go there to kena strip. You know?
The loop or non-loop, not.
Oh, jig it. Loop.
Jig it.
Okay. Simple. Keep it simple. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. But you know, you try to keep it as simple as possible. Try to find the knot that you can tie the fastest. That you can tie with blindfolded. Because while you're tying your jig head, the fish is boiling and your friends are catching, you're not catching. The boil may last only for 5 seconds, 10 seconds. That's it.
So end of the day, to add on is the even from fluorocarbon to our ester line, our fluorocarbon to the jig head, everything is simple. You don't need a very strong knot. You don't need up here and there, because basically our line is already very thin. You don't need a super knot or what, no. So end of the day, you 2-pound line, 1.7, you will still break. You know, so you don't actually need a very strong knot.
So you can use something like
keep it simple.
uni to uni, blood knot, figure of 8 knot, double figure of 8 knot, and all these simple things that you can find online.
Lefty crack knot, something that we use.
Can use Caro.
You can use Caro. So to explain, Caro is actually Carolina rig, right? In Japan they call it Caro. Which is to put a sinker in front of the jig head or naked hook, right, to help you sink down faster. I think sometimes in Japan they use Caro when they're boat Ajing. And
Giga Aji.
Giga Aji. So they're going down to maybe 50 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters, and they're not moving. I think you experienced this before. They don't move so much. and
They just let it sit and let it flow.
let it flow, and then play the depth, right? But if you ask me, I would always prefer, this is personal preference of course, I would always prefer direct contact to the fish.
Because
Not
by
something
using
sitting
jig
around.
head, you can feel better. If
Yes.
you are using Karo, because Karo sort of like dampens the take. I mean, if you are Giga RG, you definitely can feel because the RG is huge. But if the normal size RG, right, then you're not gonna feel as well.
I mean, fight wise as well, I have done Karo, yes, on a naked hook it's very effective. But I lose the fun. The reason why we end this is to have fun, right? And if you're gonna, for me personally, if I'm gonna put something in front of it and let the fish drag it around, it's not that fun.
I think to add on, the most important point of not using Karo is if you're trying to impart action to your rig, direct,
Jig head will be better.
and when I move, my jig head move. But if you tie to a Karo, when you move, you're moving the sinker. You won't be moving your soft plastic as much as if you're tying direct.
Yeah.
So when you're moving, you move only your sinker. So this thing will be just floating at the back.
What's the point of buying expensive rubber if you're not gonna impart action on it? Yeah.
So that you won't get any action out of it if you're using Karo.
Yeah, put sotong. Use jig head without snap. Yes, you can tie directly. You can use snell. You can use I use hangman knot. You can use a double. What you call it? The knot that you tie.
Surgeon.
No, the one that
Oh,
the direct the jig head. I was just talking about it just now.
Yeah.
The one most common
Uni.
one. Yeah, uni knot.
Uni. I also use uni.
We don't normally use snaps lah, because when you use a snap, right, it will also in a way hinder the
Action.
the sinking of the thing. It will not be very natural because there's an additional piece of, although it's a very light piece of metal, but because everything is very light, so it will in a way hinder not as natural.
What's the best way to keep our soft plastics out? Try to keep the same make
Yes.
of soft plastics together.
Do not mix
Soft plastics.
soft plastics. Different brand especially. They
They
will
got-
melt together.
There are different properties lah. I mean, you can get a tackle box, but you better to have those that's compartment.
Different compartments.
Yeah, so then you can put the same brands together because usually they are made of the same material. But try not to mix the different brands together.
Colours
Even
as well.
for same brands, try to keep it the same
The
color.
color, yes, please.
Because
please,
if you
please.
put
It
different
will
color,
bleach.
they will transfer. But of course, you get limited edition worms.
I have
Only
a
you
tip.
have.
I have a tip. I have a tip that you can use, which is maybe you can have a little bit of styrofoam. If you really want to use your rubber, reuse your rubber, you can have a bit of styrofoam. Once you're done, right, just take your jig head, wash it off, rinse off the salt water, just put it on the styrofoam, stick it in your bag in a safe place. So next time, the first thing that comes out,
But some of the soft plastic also react to
correct,
styrofoam.
will
Yeah.
react to styrofoam maybe, or foam,
Foam.
EVA as well. So if you're lazy, just chuck it in your bag. There's a special compartment that I have on me that I just put my used worms. But usually for me, if combination doesn't work or if I'm going to reuse it, I have a special little box that I keep it in.
For me, simple. My used worm, I put it back. But all my worms will face one direction. The one that I used before will face the other direction.
Oh, so you know that.
So whenever I go fishing and I open up, right, I always take the one that's facing the other direction first. Then if I lose it or the thing tear, right, then I will dispose it and then I'll take a new one.
Well, leader we cover. They're using like 5 to 6 pound leader.
Or 4 pounds or even
Those are recovered already.
Already.
So this is the one. How about Texas rig?
Texas rig, okay, let me recall. Okay, Texas rig is for bass fishing, developed in Texas because of their many
Reed patches.
weed patches and structure and stuff. So you use an offset worm hook and everything. For us, it's kind of the opposite, right? When it comes to hook, you want the hook to be exposed, not too much, but you want the hook to be exposed because you're gonna suck it in and spit it out, right? You want to get the shot on top of the mouth, right? Texas rig, I would say it would be very difficult to rig up in the first place. When you are rigging out your Texas rig, the RG is swimming around
Correct.
and boiling, right? Rather than that, just get a jig head, worm, put it together, blah blah blah. It's the simplicity that we go for, right? Rather than the complex rigs. Yes, of course, I've tried many funny things, but at the end of the day, I still come back to jig head and worm.
like what we talk about, keep it simple. Don't have to be too fancy on certain things.
This one is
What,
Carolina
Carolina
rig.
rig,
Whalers for like those Indonesian anglers.
Yes, I think we covered the Carolina rigs earlier. Maybe you can
Just refer back
again.
Mm.
Yeah lah, I'm so hungry ah.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we're gonna end it because like this is way off our time. Okay, so anyway, if let's say later on, right, if there any more questions, just put in the comment box. They will reply you after dinner. Okay, thank you, Ismail. Thank you, Dixon. Thank you, Michael. I don't know where is he for coming on the show tonight, and thank you guys for joining us. So, like I say, if there's any more things you need to ask, just
I mean, if you see us out fishing, just come and say hi.
there are friendly people.
I always wear this t-shirt. It might sting a bit.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night,
See you again.
bye.
Bye bye.
Fish, learn, share.